Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Coming to you live from, yes, of course, the Death Star. That's right, we are down here in Olympia, Washington, where your state legislature works feverishly every year to disarm you. And certainly on the heels of both the 2022 and 2023 legislative session, the gun grabbers down here in the Death Star have in fact felt rather emboldened, and I anticipate that we are going to head into yet another bloodbath of a legislative session. Don't believe me? Well, let's talk about some of the pet projects that they may still have on their civilian disarmament docket. So today, let's spend a few minutes right here from Olympia, Washington, and talk about all the ways they're going to try to disarm you next year. Okay, coming to you live from our wonderful state capitol here in Olympia, Washington, on the heels of the 2022 legislative session, which of course saw the passage of magazine bans, and then on the 2023 legislative session, which of course saw an assault weapon ban. Your Attorney General and Governor and state legislature feels very, very emboldened in their civilian disarmament causes. So what other projects might we see? If you're sitting there going, my God, they've done just about everything except outright disarm us, what could they possibly do? Well, hold on, because they always have new and creative ideas. Actually, they don't have new and creative ideas here in Washington state. You see, instead what they do is they copycat other states, predominantly, yes, our governor's favorite state, of course, in California. Now, it's pretty simple to read the tea leaves to figure out what they may want to do. You take a look at legislation that may have died on the vine last year, knowing that it's going to be renewed again this year, and you take a look at some of the other legislation passed in some of the other, what I like to call, usual suspect states. You know, California, Oregon, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Maryland. States such as that. What might be on the radar for this coming legislative session? Well, let's start with the piece of legislation that didn't really get anywhere last year, and this year, obviously, the efforts will be behind it. It was called House Bill 1178. What you need to know is this is an attempt to do away with state preemption. Now, if you think you have it bad, having the clowns in that building make your gun laws, wait until the Seattle City Council, the King County Council, the Tacoma City Council, the Pierce County Council, or any other municipality and or county gets to make their own gun laws. Now, it should be called the Attorney Full Employment Act of 2024, because a lot of people in my industry will have a lot more lawsuits to file. But it literally turns this battle that we're in, where we are constantly trying to defend what should be inalienable rights, from some of the earlier stages of missile command to some of the late stages of missile command, for those of you who geeked out on that video game. A erosion or eradication of state preemption law in Washington state would be absolutely horrific for every state resident. And for those of you who have the audacity to travel across the state, just think of all the different jurisdictional elements you will drive through on your way from perhaps Aberdeen, Washington to Spokane, Washington. Okay, another area that we're going to definitely see legislation on, why? Because we've seen it in every other state that's had a so-called Bruin response bill, is a whole new laundry list of sensitive places. The idea will be to turn the Washington state, the entire state, into one gigantic gun-free zone. That will also include, and we are seeing this down in California with Senate Bill 2, we're seeing this out in Massachusetts now with their Bruin response bill, a prohibition on firearms on all pieces of private property unless that property owner gives express permission. So you're going to have government basically step in and tell every private property owner, we know what is best for you. Mandatory liability insurance. Oh yeah, that's one that the city of San Jose was the first one to spearhead, and it is just another way for government to try to tax people out of their Second Amendment rights. So any type of financial barrier that can be thrown up to make it more expensive to exercise what is supposed to be an inalienable right, you could rest assured that this state legislature will be proposing legislation to accomplish exactly that. Firearm registration. Listen to me carefully here. This comes from Illinois and also a bill now in Massachusetts. As we know, we banned semi-automatic rifles, they call them assault weapons, last year. We grandfathered in a large chunk of them, all of them that were previously owned. However, Do not be surprised if there's a piece of legislation that says if you want to continue to own those grandfathered firearms, you will need to register them with state government, which is interesting because for any of you who have purchased either a handgun or a semi-automatic rifle in the state of Washington, you know that there already is a Department of Licensing form that we have to fill out, and we all know what the Department of Licensing has been doing with that data. Expansion of red flag laws. Currently under Washington state law, only law enforcement or an immediate family member or household member can petition for an extreme risk protection order. Look for legislation that is going to greatly expand the list of individuals who can apply or petition for a red flag order. New training requirements. As we know, House Bill 1143, House Bill 1144, which was mandatory pre-purchasing licensing, really got gutted. It turned it into kind of a watered-down training program. Do not be surprised if we see a renewed effort to try to revert back to the original training program, once again throwing up huge financial barriers for those who want to exercise what is supposed to be an inalienable right. Now, that's a laundry list of all the things they're going to do. Here's some of the stuff that they won't do. We will see legislation proposed, perhaps again by Senator Linda Wilson, that will say, hey, we need to really stiffen the penalties for people who are stealing firearms or using stolen firearms in the commission of a crime or unlawfully possessing firearms while they are committing crimes. That legislation will go nowhere. There will be legislation designed to significantly increase funding for mental health and suicide prevention. That legislation will go nowhere. There will be legislation proposed by Republicans that will say, hey, you know what? We got a massive drug problem. You guys say we have a homeless problem. What we really have in this state is a big drug problem that disguises itself as a homeless problem. We need to crack down on the drugs. That legislation will go nowhere. But rest assured, if any of those morons in that building propose anything designed to disarm you, the lawful and responsible gun-owning Washingtonian, oh yeah, they'll be hot to trot on it. Listen, you may have more questions. We will obviously keep reading the tea leaves, and as we learn more about what's at stake for this coming legislative session, you will be the first to know. In the meantime, if you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know the drill by now. But if you don't know how to get a hold of Washington gun law, that information is down there in the description box. Now, in the meantime, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.